this is a creaking display. I haven't discovered this. This was discovered by a YouTube channel NASA, I think. And the way it works is you have creakings on the side and below you, down there. And you know, if you don't look at creakings, they go up. If you look to the right, you see, if I go right, it sinks down in water and isn't any longer touching the drip wire. And the idea the shop works is that you look at the field you want to buy something from, and then like maybe later you have a piece of helmet or you throw a snowball to confirm that you want to buy this field. And that is picked up by a sculk sensor, and then sent to the display. Maybe you have some logic behind there that calculates if you can afford this to buy this. Okay, but there's one problem with this display, and that's how to show what you are currently buying. I had the idea that you could use some banners to write above the lamps what you could buy there, but the problem is that limits you really to only some letters. For sure, you could use some custom paintings or custom maps to have them above there and show the full text. Or you could put the display more in the background, so you could put more banners with letters on there. But I thought, why not, let's do it simple, and on the back side you could have a little explanation what each field is. And then maybe also some color encoding, and then also color encode this backside here to make it more clear what you can buy from that. The next idea is a bit more simple, but still can be very handy. The idea here is that the player still sits in a minecart and doesn't have to move. And in front of the player are just 5 buttons and some signs. Here the signs are at the moment a bit misleading, so you would have to think about new positioning, but the general concept is that there are just some selection panels around the player where the player can click the buttons to buy stuff. The next idea would be that there's just a long hallway where a lot of buttons are lined up, and you just can press a button to buy something. This makes it really easy to scale up the amount of things you want to sell in your shop, and it is also very easy to implement because there's a lot of space behind each button, but it also comes with the cost that the player has to run a lot for that. So can be good for a small amount of things to buy, but for more things to buy, it can get very big very fast. The next idea would be that if you have some minigame where something is dropped, like for example, something like a tower defense minigame or a dungeon quest minigame, then it could be much easier for you to implement some shop logic with some item filters where the player has to drop something into hoppers. And if the player dropped enough of the wanted currency, then the thing that the player has bought would be unlocked. The next idea is to use some sort of user interface in a chest, like we know it from Hypixel Bed Wars or something else. And in here we would have renamed items that maybe even look like the thing they are doing. And to buy them, the player has to press the drop button on them. And then some background logic will check. So the item is collected here, and some background logic will read this out with some sorting, item sorting, and then check if you can afford it or something like that, and then we'll buy it. Or if it cannot be bought, it will be brought back in here, and in here will be like some filler items, maybe not redstone torch, but some stained glass. And then if you can't afford it, it will be brought back to the same spot. And if you could afford it, it could be replaced with some filler item, I don't know, or maybe with a renamed item called with, I don't know, maybe you could place an A or just a board B in front of the wind. And here, for sure, you could also add some small description behind the name. And if you want to go even one level further, I think you could put some books in here and rename the books. And then the player could take out the book, read what the book is doing, what the description of this item is, and then decide to buy it or to not buy it. For sure, to reset this every time the player used it, you don't know how crazy the player is that is using it, so maybe the player messes everything up. The reset mechanism for this could be really complicated. You would have to clear everything out, sort everything again, line it up into new perfect order, fill everything first with the filler items, and then fill in the right items in the right order. So this is way more logic needed, but it is a really cool way to show something, to display the things that can be bought. And this was it. Thank you for watching. For sure, the creaking display could have been built also with the new arrow and wind charge technique, but what I don't like about it is that you need the player to set up an arrow perfectly. For sure, you can do that with pistons, but the creaking display works without any player setup. So I think it's way more intuitive to use. And there are for sure some other ways to build some redstone shops for minigames, like doing it with a map and then maybe a number panel or something like that. But I think I covered most of the possible solutions, and I hope you now found something for your redstone minigame. Bye!